Hello, and welcome to a special joint podcast edition of From the Cold Corner and the Food Engineering Podcast. Today, we're going to be unpacking the 26th Annual Food Automation and Manufacturing Symposium and Expo. I am Kelly Rodriguez, Editor-in-Chief of Refrigerated and Frozen Foods and Content Manager for FA&M. I am joined today by Elise Thompson-Richards, Editor-in-Chief of Food Engineering, and Michael Levitt, Editor at Food Engineering. Thank you both for joining me today, and we're going to unpack a little of your first FA&M experience and just talk about some of the really incredible presentations that we got to witness. And I'm curious to hear about what you both learned at this, your first FA&M. So Elise, why don't we start with you? How was your first food automation and manufacturing event? And you also hosted a panel talking about women in food engineering, which was really well received, I thought, and very timely.
Yeah, so overall, I really enjoyed FAM. Of course, it was my first one since becoming editor-in-chief of food engineering, but I thought the presentations were incredibly insightful. My background comes from confectionery manufacturing, so it always is a little bit eye-opening for me to see other types of manufacturing. And so I really learned a lot from the presentations, and they seem really well received. And of course, the highlight for me was moderating the Women in Engineering panel. And this panel was born from a series that we started doing on food engineering last year, where we're highlighting work of, food engineers who are women. And we thought a good way to bring it to life would be to talk to a couple of women engineers at FAM. And we had Shalama Srinath, who was the head of downstream engineering at Celebre, and Samara Higgins, who is the director of process quality engineering for Feastables, Mr. Beast's chocolate brand. And it was so incredible to talk to them. They're both extremely intelligent,
Yeah.
extremely experienced in the food industry. And I know our other guests were extremely happy to have a chance to communicate with them during the event. But it was just so great to hear about what their thoughts were on diversity within the food industry and all of the different projects that they've worked on. So I hope that's something that we can continue to do because I really, really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And you did a great job moderating.
Oh, thank you.
And I wish, I should have, we did get some Mr. Beast Feastables chocolate right off, straight from the production line, as I like to say. So that was, I brought it home and I slipped it in my husband's Easter basket yesterday. So uh, very, very on trend. We
Exactly. Hopefully he liked it.
Yes. Michael, it was your first food automation and manufacturing symposium and expo as well. I'm curious, what was your favorite presentation or something that really stuck with you the most?
Yeah, I really enjoyed I thought Dr. Andrew Hurley's presentation was very interesting about just the way he sort of went about it, I think, looking at the um packaging sustainability and sort of I don't know, it's that really was just some insight that I really hadn't thought of before as far as
Mhm.
um the how consumers think about it versus what it actually is and sort of what the
Right,
difference is there.
right.
Um, I thought that was very interesting.
I really enjoyed his presentation too. Of course, so Dr. Hurley comes from Clemson, and he was our day two keynoter,
Right.
and he spoke a lot about um, circularity and sustainability through the lens of food packaging. And of course, food packaging and particularly plastic is really in the news these days. So I thought it was definitely a timely presentation. And he also really gave a good overview about all of the services and the ways in which, Clemson University is really doing some very cool things around innovation in terms of, not just packaging substrates, but really across food engineering landscape. So let's take a little listen to Dr. Hurley's presentation.
If you're not asking the right questions and the goal was to have a lower carbon emission, you may be using the wrong materials to begin with the thought that it's going to be so much better. I've noticed in doing a lot of these life cycle analyses, it comes down to weight. And in order to get the barrier properties that are needed with conventional polymers, you need to have a lot thicker packaging, a lot heavier packaging to get those similar comparable properties. And that extra weight is just more carbon. And so that's why we're getting the data that we are. But this could leave you in a state of confusion and paralysis, just like everybody else. Just like when I asked which of those options were the best, everyone in here froze. It's hard. So what I want to give you today is I've had 2 mentors in my life that have shaped my philosophy on sustainability, and I want to give you 3 rules that you can apply to every situation that gives you a good rubric for making solid decisions on sustainable packaging. And so the first rule is this, that sustainability is simple, but it's not easy. Everything I'm about to say is on a continuum. And so you can find suppliers that might be really close to where you want to be, but no one is all the way at the end. It's really hard to find. But the more we're thinking in this way, I think the better off we're going to be.
And of course, our day one keynoter was Tom Kelly, who was back by popular demand. He keynoted last year, and we had him back this year in light of the election, the new administration, and really just to kind of give the audience an update on all things automation, robotics, Industry 4.0. I'm really, I think he's also a Midwestern guy. He's based in Michigan. They are a Michigan-supported nonprofit, but the fascinating thing about his organization, Automation Alley, is that, I think they were largely born out of the automotive industry, but now, his presentation touched on really any and all types of manufacturing, but particularly he talked about how customization is going to be really key in the future for food manufacturing.
We're like a library. If we're a knowledge center, we're in it for America to win. And now with these tariffs, I don't know if they're going to be resolved next week. I doubt it. That is going to put enormous pressure on American manufacturing. And it's not going to come back in the traditional way that we think. It's going to create opportunities for new technologies because speed is going to be the defining factor.
Of course, on day one, in between that fabulous Women in Food Engineering panel and the keynote, we heard from Brock Furlong, who is the longtime CEO of Stampede Culinary Partners. And I was looking on social media, I was looking on LinkedIn after the event, and it was interesting. I saw a number of people that had taken photos of his presentation that were really talking about his presentation, which was on the sous vide revolution and how they are sort of really, really impacting the food landscape through food service and back of house type of innovation. He talked about their work that they have done with Chipotle and Waffle House and a lot of really big name customers. And I thought his whole focus on them not on Stampede not having a price list or a SKU list was really fascinating, because that, again, it speaks to, again, what Tom Kelly was talking about, which is that customization, for their customers.
They say the average CEO is like life expectancy is only like 3 years, and I've been doing it for 15, so I guess maybe I've outlived my usefulness. But they wanted to change the name. So we were Stampede Meat originally, and then we dropped that and just became Stampede. And they approached me and said, well, yeah, but you're not saying what you do. And I said, okay, I get it. So we changed to Stampede Culinary Partners. The reason we're doing Egg Bites today is because we changed our name to Stampede Culinary Partners. Because it gave that customer, those customers, permission to come to us as a custom solution provider. And prior to that, when it was just Stampede, they viewed us as still a Stampede meat. So there is actually a lot in a name, and I will tell you that I'll come back to this revolution concept that we talked about at the beginning. We're talking to 8 different partners now that want to become part of this, our network. We will be, this organization, you heard it here today, we will be $2.5 to $3 billion inside of the next 5 to 6 years, based on those additional partnerships. Now, I will tell you that that burden of 2,300 families is going to become a burden of 6,000 families, so I'm not sure I'm ready for that completely. But it's a pretty exciting thing to be able to add that many families and to do that much work for that many folks out there.
And the day one presentations were capped off with something a little near and dear to my heart, which was Refrigerated and Frozen Foods 2024 Processor of the Year, Cafe Spice, a New York-based company that is a real family owned and operated story. Just a really incredible story of both branded and private label manufacturing in the refrigerated, ready-to-eat space, the work that they're doing with customers like Whole Foods. And of course, we did talk a lot in that presentation as well about their brand new 70,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing facility that has really revolutionized and changed the way that they are producing food now for, as I said, including every hot bar, Whole Foods hot bar across the country. So they have a lot of automation, a lot of robotics installed at the new facility. And I think the contrast for them in discussing their heritage production facility and the new production facility was probably one of the most interesting points, to me, both as someone who writes about this, and then just, as you said, Elise, just someone who gets to go and see how the stuff is made. So their presentation was a lot of fun. And I know that a lot of people came up and chatted with them after the fact. So let's take a look at a little bit of Cafe Spice.
What impresses you most about the new plant, the new facility?
Who do you want to start?
I'll start. Impresses me most is the efficiency, and I mentioned it when I started, the fact that we've been able to 4 or 5 times the batch sizes and still keep the quality. And in fact, we were in stores yesterday too, and I think the products look even better than ever before. So that's been very impressive. I've been skeptical of the robots and what it does to the workforce, and Virgilio touched on that. And I see that they've embraced it. It's making their job easier. We're able to grow. I mean, we are projecting being 30% up this year. Last year was kind of like a ramp up year for the new plant, but just some contracts that we've got. We'll be 30% up this year, and with little, we don't have to add too many bodies, so that's been great. The robotics have been very impressive. So the efficiency and maintaining the quality has been the most impressive to me.
On day 2, we had some more really great manufacturing-focused presentations. The first being our honorable mention for Food Engineering's Plant of the Year, and that went to the Campbell's Company for their recent expansion of their Richmond, Utah facility for goldfish crackers. And when people think of Campbell's Company, they think of soup. They don't automatically think of all the things that Campbell's makes, including crackers and, meals and beverages. So I think that was extremely informative for people who don't realize how expansive the Campbell's portfolio is.
Right.
But it was also really incredible to see the efficiency that they incorporated into their new goldfish line. And something else really cool that Campbell's did is that they built a flour mill on site. They partnered with a local milling company to build this plant so that way they can source and process the wheat locally. It gives them more sustainable options, but then also I'm assuming more cost effective and more efficient for them to do that. So that was really interesting to see how they, built that relationship and continued to use it. They even mentioned maybe expanding that model to their other goldfish plants. So it was really great to see that presentation.
As we first had these plans to expand, our procurement group immediately started looking at, we're doing this massive expansion in Richmond. Do we have enough ingredients and supplies? One of the areas that we're very concerned about is flour supply. We pull about all of our flour from between Ogden, which is about an hour south, and Blackfoot, which is a few hours north, both very old mills and capacity constrained. And so the procurement group reached out to a number of milling companies to gauge interest in if there would be anybody that would have interest to construct a mill directly next to our property. And PHM Brands answered the call and said, yeah, we'd love to build a mill and partner with you on this. And so, right, there's a number of benefits, obviously supply reliability and additional capacity for future expansions. In the plant, there are so many benefits, right? We get a very consistent, high quality flour, efficiency from we don't have to deal with trucks anymore. So there's a pipe connecting the two facilities. As I'm up here talking to you today, we're blowing over 50,000 pounds per hour of flour on this pipeline that connects to the mill, to the plant flour silos.
Elise, that was really a stellar presentation. And I have to tell you, one of my favorite things about going to FA&M every year is these random little factoids that I get to walk away with. And it's mind-boggling. That plant is producing, I think they said, 5 million goldfish crackers an hour. The sheer number of tiny little goldfish, and you think of how many of us grew up eating those crackers. So I really loved their presentation. I think most people did in the audience too. Again, it's a product that's really familiar to people. And speaking of another beloved, product, who doesn't love honey buns? Talk to us a little bit about Carolina Foods. And I know you got to also tour their facility ahead of FA&M. What was that like?
Yeah, so we had the honor and privilege to present Carolina Foods with the 2025 Plant of the Year Award at FA&M. And this is for their brand new facility in Pineville, North Carolina. And Carolina Foods has a great story. I was able to visit their new facility in February. But this is a legacy manufacturer of honey buns and mini donuts and pies and pastries in Charlotte, North Carolina, who is just out of space. They were putting lines in wherever they could, and it just wasn't working for them anymore. So with the infusion of capital from Falfurrias Capital Partners, the company was able to build a 425,000 square foot facility in the suburb of Pineville. And this facility is just incredible. Because it is so long, they're able to have a completely linear process flow, which, as their operations director told me, the most efficient way to do things is in a straight line. And so that's what they did. But they also took a lot of other learnings from their legacy facility, and such as enclosing their fryer room so they can maintain negative pressure and better control the climate within their production facility. And they also fully automated their packaging, which was really interesting to see because they've been growing like crazy. They're going to continue to grow like crazy. So they definitely needed that extra boost. So it was really great to learn more about that at FA&M.
The process control we created in the design of the building certainly extends to the process control we created in the design of our equipment. We often refer to our new bakery as a state-of-the-art facility, and it's not just in the construction itself, but as an example, Rebecca, I'm not sure how many, but we have multiple vision systems that are giving us real-time data from the makeup side of our process all the way through to the very end from a check weigher or a tray check weigher as well. When people buy 12 honey buns, believe it or not, they want to make sure there's 12 in that tray. So we want to make sure we give them that same product. I think unique compared to our original bakery, not only the advance in technology of the vision system, the dimensional audits as well. And most of you know this, anytime you install automation, your precision or your ability to drive out variation in your product becomes even more valuable as you look to increase your line efficiencies.
Yeah, that was a very interesting presentation by Carolina Foods, and it is amazing how long that their initial plant has been in existence, and that they're still using it. I mean, I think they said it was since 1934 or something like that, as far as when it started, and so it's, I mean, going on close to 100 years at this point, and the fact that it's still in production, and even if they made upgrades, that it's still making product is just, it's mind-boggling. So yeah, I mean that was, and that was I think a very good way to cap off our educational sessions for the FA&M event, with the plant of the year, and just sort of almost tying everything together between the automation side of it and the production side of it, to sort of put those together, and just show what the capabilities are.
What one thing stood out? Is there a fact that you like, is there something that stood out to you, one factoid that you feel like will be your party trick, your piece of trivia now?
I feel like probably I feel like there's multiple candidates for that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like probably the top one would be that the goldfish cracker actually does have a name, which I feel like many people who attended that presentation did not realize.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so Finn is the name of that, for anyone who did not know.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, as a Pisces myself, I was happy to learn that the goldfish crackers were made for me. And but secondly, I was very mind blown by Dr. Hurley's presentation, because he also went through, and Michael kind of touched on this, but he went through how compostable packaging can, be more intensive as far as carbon emissions, instead of, the typical plastic that can't even be recycled heading to the landfill. So that really made me rethink a lot of things, and it'll be interesting to see how we continue to develop resources for recycling and reusing plastic films, because, as you mentioned, people don't know what to do with it. They know what to do with aluminum cans. They know what to do with glass bottles. They even know what to do with plastic milk jugs, but the plastic films are extremely confusing. So I'm hoping that the industry will continue to educate consumers on what to do and how to handle that kind of plastic.
It really was a packed agenda this year. It was, a day and a half of content. And then, of course, there was the Expo hall and 2 luncheons and a couple of networking opportunities. So yeah, all told, I think the 26th annual Food Automation and Manufacturing Symposium was a lot of fun and informative, and I certainly learned a lot, and I can't wait to tell everybody that I know the goldfish's real name, and all sorts of other great things I learned, and connections that were made. So, well, thank you both for joining me on this wrap-up podcast. And for more on the Food Automation and Manufacturing Symposium and Expo, visit foodautomationsymposium.com.